Talking old-timey. I got a Frankenstein at my show. So do I.
Mine's got a flat head, fella. How about yours?
I gotta pee.
Welcome everyone to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different show, watch just its first televised episode, and discuss it, ignoring anything we might know about future episodes. This week we're going to be talking about The Addams Family. The Addams Family went 64 episodes over 2 seasons on CBS. Today we're going to be talking about The Addams Family Goes to School, which originally aired September 18th, 1964. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the guys, Nick, Joe, Gordo, and Ferg. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Yo.
Good luck, Charlie. This is 2 weeks in a row where we got old-timey voice, and I'm really excited. Hey, take the mask off there, fella.
That's me.
So, in reference to 2 weeks ago, we did The Munsters, so check that out if you haven't already. And, you know, to get into it, this is 1964, September, and when we did The Munsters, those two shows both, they were like a week or two apart, the intro date for the pilot episode. So, really interesting that two networks had shows that were about, like, spooky families that were that close.
Deja vu.
It is strange.
Like, you wonder, like, who had the idea first, and then, like, who jumped ship to the other company and was like, we need one of these as well.
Yeah, like, did it come out in Variety, like, CBS makes show about monsters, and they were like, we can't let CBS beat us to the punch.
We need our own monster show.
So, The Addams Family, we're talking about the original show from 1964. The Addams Family, obviously, over the years, has had different incarnations. To this day, there's still Addams Family stuff going on. But as far as this specific show goes, the original show, has anyone not seen it up until now?
Me.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I
Okay.
knew what it is. I knew what
This
it was, rather.
never on Nick at Night.
Yeah, I'm not
that
sure
was
I
my
ever really sat
exposure to
down.
these old shows was always Nick at Night.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
a
never
good
on
point.
the...
It had to be on something, though, because I don't know where I would have seen it otherwise.
Yeah, I know I've definitely watched it in the past because everything was familiar. But I
Maybe when
couldn't tell you,
TV
like,
Land
when and
first
where.
started and TV Land was, like, actually a repository for old TV shows and not, like, Hot in Cleveland or whatever the fuck they do now.
We should actually do some of those shows, at some point. We're going to have to look through the shows that their original programming and do something.
I mean, obviously, I just said it, so let's do Hot in Cleveland. That'll be a fun one, I think.
We'll get that in there. But yeah,
We can
interesting.
do a Cleveland block. We'll do Drew Carey show and Hot in Cleveland as a 2-week back-to-back.
We'll find another couple shows that are difficult to find on any streaming service too. But so the Addams Family, as far as I said it before, there's a ton of other incarnations. So even if you hadn't seen this specific run, the original run, you're familiar with the Addams Family. What would you guys say is what you know them best from? It has to be the 90s movies.
Yeah, the 90s movies.
Yeah.
We grew up with that and Family Values.
Yeah,
Addams Family Values is one of the greatest movies of all time.
I have a story about that. We rented a cabin. My family rented a cabin in Maine, and it had a TV in there, and it had no cable, and it didn't have rabbit ears or anything. All it had was a VCR, and none of our parents thought to take VHSs with them. So we opened up the drawer, and there was one copy of Addams Family Values for the entire week. That video played on loop for that whole vacation. So
That sounds amazing.
yeah, it was just a weird
because that
find.
was your only thing to watch didn't mean you had to just consistently watch it.
You figure I was probably 14, maybe 12. So my brother and sister were like 6, 5, and then we had my 2 younger cousins. So you can't have little kids not have some kind of
You need
TV.
some background noise.
So it was just constantly on loop. But yeah, I remember that. Pulling that out and just being like, Addams Family Values. Like, what?
See, kids back in the day, cell phones weren't a thing with internet and smartphones and videos.
At the end of that, Gordo, did you memorize all the lyrics to the Addams Family rap at the end of the movie?
Do what
Yes.
they wanted
The
to
MC
say what
Hammer
they
one?
wanted to say what they wanted to say.
Whoop! The Addams Family. There
That was
it
by
is.
MC Hammer, and I love that
so
song.
depressingly bad.
No, it's awesome,
So for me,
especially the
those
music
90s,
video.
those 90s movies, Wednesday Addams, Christina Ricci was my very first, like, celebrity crush. Probably my first crush, period. It was just,
Better
and
than
I don't know,
Joe's.
it was her as Wednesday Addams. So I don't know what that says about me then, what that says about me now, but that was it. Wednesday Addams was the first time I was like, ooh, I like girls.
Was it a shock when you finally saw girls were in color?
Well, no, 90s version. 90s
Oh,
version,
yeah. Right, my bad.
Christina Ricci would be pretty old if she was in that original show.
I was just talking about this recently. Christina Ricci and Black Snake Moan. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, you see her titties.
Ferg is like a walking, what's that website? Mr. Skin.
Yeah.
Like a walking Mr. Skin.
You see
You know how many
titties.
times
Oh,
I
yeah, so
paused
32
that one
minutes and
quick
15
scene?
seconds.
Also, can we isolate that? I want that as my new text ringtone, so it goes off in the middle of a work call.
Yes.
You see titties.
All right, so let's actually talk about the 60s Addams Family now. So we'll get straight into that episode. It starts with the intro right away. The song is super catchy. It's the song that you would still know today if you hadn't watched the original show, but you know the Addams Family. It's the typical dun-dun-dun-dun. It's that song all with the lyrics, and you're just kind of seeing the whole family sitting together, like they're posing for a portrait or something, but they are snapping to the theme. But other than that, they're just standing still the entire time, and it was a little awkward, but I still really liked it.
Also, the lyrics seemed weird without mentions of Batman, and like, what was the song used to always get sung when we were kids? Was it All Really Started When Uncle Fester Farted? Was that the one?
What?
Yeah. Hard R, you can't say. I think there's a Batman rhyme in there somewhere, too.
You're thinking of Jingle Bells, Batman Smells. Robin laid an egg.
Using Jingle Bells and the Addams Family song.
One thing I also did want to note about the intro is only 2 actors were credited. Only Gomez and Morticia were the only 2 that like the actors were credited in the intro, which I thought was really strange.
You know what's weird, too? I went back and looked. I mean, I expected them all to be dead, but Gomez and Wednesday are the only living ones.
Gomez?
Really? He's got to be
Gomez.
like 100,
Gomez is,
too.
yeah, he's
old.
still alive. Wednesday is. Pugsley died young. The others were pretty old anyways, but Morticia died at like 50-something.
Yo,
Wow.
our Gomez did die. What if he like stole his youth? Ruled Julia.
So
That's
Raul
true,
Julia's
yeah.
cancer was caused.
R.I.P.
That's a rough one. That is an RIP though. Raul Julia was great, and I feel like
He was the only good part of that Street Fighter movie. He played M. Bison.
you feel
Of
so bad
course.
that it's dedicated to him at the end too.
And he played Fingal at Overdrawn at the Memory Bank.
I think if he didn't die, that series probably would have got 4 or 5 more movies.
Probably.
Oh yeah, and they would have been way better than the third Addams Family movie, which we were talking about earlier, the direct-to-video one with Tim Curry. And I love Tim Curry, but that movie was bad.
I think that was just because it was a made-for-TV movie. It didn't get the love it deserved. Like,
Well, I think it just wasn't dark,
And
right?
making.
Those movies when we were kids are dark. Like, that whole Addams Family Values is about, like, they collect serial killer trading cards, and
Yeah.
Joan Cusack is trying to murder Christopher Lloyd the whole time.
that's the thing. That's not what the original series was like.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's talk about the original series before we spend an entire podcast talking about the 90s movies. So to start the actual first scene, we have the mailman. He just goes to put some mail in the mailbox, but as he's looking away, a hand pops out and grabs the mail from him, and he doesn't see it, but he's like just spooked by the idea like the letters disappeared from his hand, but he doesn't know what happened. So right off the bat, we're getting a little bit of a vibe that things are strange here, right? That there's like, I don't know if it's supernatural is the word, but
Slightly amiss.
yeah.
Left of center.
I don't know. A hand that doesn't have a body is pretty supernatural, I'd say.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess I didn't pay enough attention to think like, could there be a body behind it, and it's just a hand reaching out? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know if it's just a hand or not at this point. I guess so. I'd have to like, I don't remember it vividly enough at this point to say one way or the other.
Now, does the hand have feelings? Not to go back into the movies, but isn't there a scene in Addams Family Values where she kisses Thing's finger
She
and
sucks
kinda
on his finger.
does the blowjob thing, and then he like gets erect and runs away? Now, what was getting
Yeah.
erect at that point? Is it one of his fingers? I'm very confused about how Thing
All the
works.
blood rushes to one finger, I guess. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I'm not gonna say I do not dislike this show, but I would much rather spend 2 hours talking about Addams Family Values.
Me
Yeah.
too.
If we ever spin off the movies, then next Halloween season, we'll get into it. And also, I didn't mention that at the top of the episode, because it's October when this episode originally comes out. For the entire month of October, we're doing 4 shows that are all Halloween-ish themed. So far, we've done The Munsters and then Ghosted last week. Now, The Addams Family, and then one more next week. And I won't tell you what that is, but you'll find out in a few days on our social media at S1E1 Pod on Instagram. So look out for that.
Punky
Right.
Brewster.
I just want to point out that this show's laugh track is ridiculous. And it's definitely a laugh track because it goes off when they're outside and stuff too.
Yeah.
It's like they laugh.
Well,
at
they could put that
every
in-
little thing.
I mean, outside could have been a set too, though.
That's
No, this
true.
is very clearly actually outside. I mean, it could be like a studio, but
Yeah, it's probably a backlot.
They either had really easy sense of humors back then, or they were like slow.
the
Like,
world.
They laughed at
In
everything.
fairness, the world was very different in the
That's
60s
true.
versus now. Yeah. So, anyways, another man walks by the house. He discovers that sign out front that says "Beware of the Thing," and he runs into the mailman and tries to like confirm that this is where the Addams family lives. And he's like a truant officer, and that the two kids that live there like have never stepped foot in the school. And then for those of you who don't know, the truant officer is someone who investigates like the sort of thing specifically, like matters with like schools, children's attendance at school.
Unscheduled absence. This is the mailman's the guy too who goes, "Good luck, Charlie."
Yes. Also, like, even if you're the truant officer, why is that the mailman's business to tell him that like these kids don't go to school every day? Like,
He's like unloading a lot on him.
yeah.
These little goddamn bastards don't show up at school
They're
every
two
day.
public servants, all right? They're bonding.
I guess that's true, yeah. Well, you know what they say when you take your driver's license exam. If a fire truck, an ambulance, and a truant officer's car show up at a four-way intersection, you let the truant officer go first because he's the most important.
So yeah. So now the
But
truant
that
officer.
question is also truant or false.
Good to know if I ever have to.
Can we
take
mute
my
Joe
license.
by any chance?
Oh, that's right.
Like, is
You're
that-
probably studying for your license at this point, aren't you?
I am. I have to drive now.
I
35.
just put two and two together.
I can't drive at 35.
You big
I'm like,
man,
oh, cool,
baby.
Joe. I remember taking that test 20 years ago.
I've just always, I'm like a Southern belle. I've always depended on the kindness of strange men to drive me around.
Are
for
the
past
tests still
12 years.
online, or did they go back to normal?
I think everything's still online. I'm just like studying for it right now.
I was gonna say just cheat.
Yeah, I was
Do
gonna
you
say
still have to
just
get a
cheat.
permit?
I think you have to get a permit to practice.
Yeah, you do.
Like to actually be behind the wheel of a car.
You don't need it for X amount of time to go get your license?
No, I think because I'm 35, I think you can just show up and be like, I'm an idiot. Can I get one? And they're like, okay, old man, go for it. But
I would love to be inside that car when you take
You
that
live in
test.
Maine.
You
You,
wanna
don't
come?
need a license.
Yeah.
Just drive a pickup truck.
I would like to take note that before we started recording, everyone here is like, this is going to be a pretty quick episode. And no, it is not. Because we are talking about everything but the Addams family.
we are tangent heavy. That's how we've always been. And this is how we'll always be.
So, anyways, the truant officer tries to get through the gate, and the gate opens up on its own and subsequently shuts and locks itself like as he's passing through it, and like pretty hard. When he gets to the door, he tries to pull the knob, and it like just like pulls all the way far out, and it like makes this like foghorn sound.
But unfortunately, it didn't shoot a staple into Daniel Stern's crotch like I assumed it would when he pulled the whole thing out.
Harry.
I thought that gag was like the weird one. Like the doorknob one I thought was kind of awkward more so than like all the other ones kind of made sense to me, even the hand, but like the doorknob one to me was a little
I didn't get it. Like, was that a thing?
like, is that how you make that like foghorn go off or like whatever that sound actually is?
But also, everything's creepy. Like,
Yeah.
like a ship's horn. Like,
Yeah.
It's not creepy.
Yeah, we'll get into it when we get into the house, but
Yeah.
the house doesn't seem as weird.
Well, no, but even if you, I mean, we'll get into that in a second actually. So let's get him in the house and then we'll go over it then.
All right.
So the doorbell or whatever that was goes off, and then a young girl opens the door, and that's when we meet Wednesday Addams. And he asks her if her parents are home, and she's like, yeah, they're always home. And then he asks if he can come in, and then she walks him in, and as we're going through the living room, we see like all this stuff. And now, Gordo, to get back into what you were saying a minute ago, to go back to the intro of the song, it's their house is a museum. Like that's what they say right in the intro of the song.
People come to see him.
And people come to see him.
Yeah, so they're never really like it's announced in the intro that they have like a museum like house more so than like a haunted house.
Well, I think the house was designed after Charles Addams' house or something like that. I forget the creator, the writer. I read something about it. I forget exactly what it was.
I think he was the proprietor of the Foghorn Museum, which is why the doorbell
I mean,
does that.
but still, like, you know, they had like terracotta warriors and they had, you know, like bears on the wall and stuff like that. Not exactly spooky, right?
Right.
Like nothing about that, like in the reaction. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but like this guy, the truant officer's reaction is just like so over the top that
Right,
it's like,
he's a
oh my
little
God,
freaked
here's a turtle and a samurai.
Well, it's
Yeah, he was
definitely
the main
strange.
writer.
it's strange to see that in a home, but yeah, it's not so much creepy. It's just odd to see these types of things laid out on the house.
It's basically Wayne Manor from the 1989 Batman.
But like, I will say, like, they had a bearskin rug that when you step on it roars. So that's a reason to be frightened. That's not how that's supposed to go.
You know what was really strange? They have on the wall, it's a swordfish, but it's got like, I think it was like a person's arm in it or something.
There's legs sticking out.
Yeah, there's
so
a leg hanging out of it.
Like, why wasn't it a shark? Swordfish aren't known to like eat people alive.
No, swordfish are known to be delicious, though.
I think the last piece of fish I ever had before I was allergic to it was a swordfish steak.
Oh, I literally had swordfish 2 nights ago.
You two shouldn't kiss then if you're allergic.
No, it's been 2 days. We can kiss again, Joe.
To quote the Addams Family, I die.
So there's a lot going on in this house. It's like probably too much to really like nitpick and like go over every little thing we see. But I thought one of the weirder things was there's like just this portrait of a giraffe in a suit. And she's like, that used to be a friend of my dad's. Like, what?
There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, I always questioned what the Addams family did.
Yeah.
I think they're old money.
Okay.
Like, they don't seem to have any jobs, right? Like our parents are always home.
No,
they must have, like...
They're like gypsies, aren't they? Like...
No, they have a house. they don't like travel around and stuff.
No, they're
like,
not.
Thinner.
Yeah. Also, right around this point of the episode, I had noticed that there's like music playing in the background like at all times. And I know that happens a little bit more in older shows than it would now, but there's like legitimate music playing, like the score of the episode is happening when typically you wouldn't get a lot of that in other shows.
Yeah, is there maybe like harpsichord music or something? I forget now, but there's stuff going on for sure.
So then, this is the point where we finally meet their son, Pugsley, because he just fixed her doll, Wednesday's doll, and the man, the truant officer, notes that it doesn't have a head, and it's because it's Lady Antoinette, and their grandmother was just teaching them about it and like the French Revolution. So I guess, they don't attend school, but they're learning a bit. I mean, they're taking up the morbid details, but for those ages to be learning about the French Revolution is pretty advanced.
Yeah, that's true. We weren't learning about that in school at that age.
Yeah,
I think Morticia tells them that it's either Morticia or Gomez. I don't remember because I watched a week ago. But she said Mama teaches the children, and then so they basically is being homeschooled by the grandmother,
right?
Which isn't illegal. So I don't know why a truant officer would be coming.
Also, Pugsley's name was originally supposed to be Pubert. And they changed
the name
it.
of the baby in Addams Family Values.
Yes,
yeah,
and
the baby. Yeah.
they changed
callback,
it for
callback.
obvious reasons.
Yeah, the baby has the mustache.
And as Pugsley runs off,
Neat.
he says, "Meet you in the cemetery." So you're like, again, obviously, that's a little more creepy than what's going on the inside of the house. Is the fact that they have a cemetery in the yard, and who's like buried? Is that just family members? Is that how they do that? Who gets buried in the backyard cemetery?
I imagine family members.
Yeah,
Like pets.
Unless the house was just built on an existing
They
cemetery.
say in the song the house is what was
A
it
museum,
called?
not a cemetery.
The house is a cemeterium.
No, there's some. All right, never mind.
Well, I imagine they just get married in their graves and then, makes the funerals very romantic, but the weddings are a bleak affair. That was for Jay.
So, anyways, she takes the man to the conservatory to talk to her mother, and when they get there, we meet the mom, and she's dealing with it's more of like a greenhouse. There's a lot of
it's like an atrium.
Yeah, she's tending to
atrium's a good word,
yeah, there you go. She's tending to all her plants, and one of them like kind of seemingly attacks him by wrapping around him.
Yeah,
that was the
Very
African
slowly.
strangler, and she's very proud of her plants. They're poisonous. So now the truant officer is trying to explain that the children need to go to school because it's the law. And she's like, that's her husband's responsibility to deal with like law stuff. And she pulls a noose that rings a bell to call him, and they can't use it when they have cake in the oven. I didn't really, Like what?
Yeah, what?
Like I get that it's a gong, but like it shakes the whole house. But
It should have been a souffle because
Something a little
souffles claps.
yeah,
And I think that's what they were going for, but said cake for some reason.
it was just a weird of all things that you can't let your whole house shake for. It's only when we bake cakes. It's like,
Well, then in Addams Family Values, too, there's the whole scene where they bake the cake with the stripper inside of it and kill her, and they just make
That
a joke
poor
about it.
girl.
Lurch. Did you? This episode of Addams Family Values is brought to you by.
Yeah, for those of you playing the drinking game along with the show, just take a shot every time Joe references Addams Family Values.
Jeff Poot, take a shot of Polar.
Not even so much like the first movie.
So you know if you have a giant hole in your armpit?
I've got 2 giant holes in my armpits.
Why?
This is a comfy house shirt. I was wearing a button up today, but I walked to get coffee, and then I drank the coffee and walked back, and then I was so sweaty I had to take it off.
For those of you listening, Joe has 2 big armpit holes in his shirt.
And for some reason keeps putting his arms all the way up.
Because I'm sweaty,
every time I look at
my
him, his
window's
arms
closed
are
and my
all
fan off, man.
The tank, bruh. Stop it.
Okay.
Gotta go shirtless there.
We were talking about Halloween costumes for next week, and I almost went as Dusty Rhodes and just came into my underwear.
I do want to note that Morticia, I wish I had wrote the actress's name.
Carolyn Sue Jones.
There you go. Thank you. What a babe. Like, I probably
For
did
sure.
not think of that in the past, but watching her in this episode, and again, I think it's just my twisted mind and like what I'm attracted to.
I think it's because Angelica Houston is just so unattractive. In comparison, she's like a dime. Like,
No, I'm not comparing her to other Morticias. I'm saying watching this and just watching the episode along and seeing this actress pop up on my screen, I was like, I like the way she looks.
For Jay, I'm 1,000% with you. Ferg, does this mean that Houston goes on your list with Queen Latifah? And,
there's no list.
And what's her face?
I love
there?
Queen Latifah.
Oh, Amy Winehouse, who
Amy
we said.
Winehouse, who you
recently.
hope is still resting unpeacefully from a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Amy Winehouse, yeah. Get her.
In any event. So now a hand reaches out and grabs his shoulder, the truant officer that is, and it's Lurch, their butler. And he's just like this gigantic man. He's, I don't know, like Frankenstein's monster-esque, right? He's like kind of in that vein, but not quite.
Yeah, I don't think he's a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah,
but
like-
he looks
he's
like
definitely
it.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's a takeoff of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it.
It's like he has that vibe, but I don't think we're supposed to be under the impression that he's created, like that, that he's like undead or whatever. But who knows? I mean, everything here is so vague, but he's definitely a spooky looking man. Definitely creep you out a little bit.
It's the flat head. He has the flat head.
Yeah,
like,
it gives you that.
and he's huge.
The Frankenstein-y vibe, yeah. And he has this very deep, slow voice, and he's just like, follow me. And he's going to take him to see Gomez. So the scene closes with her talking to her plants again and just thinking that she hasn't given them enough moonlight, and that's what's hurting them at the moment. Lurch then opens the door to an office, and that's where we meet Gomez Addams. And he's admiring this model train that he has, like going around the track. And the first thing I notice is like how wide-eyed he is. As he's gazing at it, he's just super, super excited. Like he's like has this childish like giddiness to him.
I do really enjoy this. Now, does anybody? I mean, this is an actor who's been around forever. Does this guy pop for anybody else? Immediately, I think of him in European Vacation.
No, I at the time I like looked him
Known
up,
from anything, I don't think.
and he's in a lot of stuff. He's has a very, very long career.
I mean, he's not dead yet, and he's still been working like up until not that long ago. Like he's got a long career.
He's got a really long list, but I can't say there's something else that like I would think of him from other than this episode or this,
in the beginning of
this
European
show. I'm sorry.
Vacation, where they play the game show.
Oh,
where they
that's right.
win the
That's
vacation.
right. He's the game show host.
He's the game show host. Yeah.
Did
And
he
then he's
have a
also
cameo in the movie, the Addams Family movie?
I don't recall.
I don't.
I
think
feel like
so.
that's something they do, but I can't remember. Like,
He does.
I've seen him.
He plays Gomez though in the Addams Family cartoon in the 90s.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, they brought him back for voice work. And the weirdest thing to his credit, which I really couldn't remember, and then I saw a picture and was like, oh, I guess I do, is there was like one season of the Batman 60s TV show where Frank Gorshin didn't play the Riddler, and he plays the Riddler.
Like in the middle of the run.
Yeah, in like season 2 or something. Like he just comes in and does it. I don't know if like he was doing something else and they couldn't commit or something, but interesting.
So now the truant officer introduces himself to Gomez as he's playing with these trains, and Gomez blows up the bridge and lets them crash. And when that's questioned, he's like, why else would a grown man play with trains? It's like, all right, I guess that explains it. That's why he was so giddy, was he was just waiting for the crash. He was super excited about that.
I mean, that's true, though. I don't know. Are any of you guys model train enthusiasts here?
I
No,
am
but thank
not.
God for model trains, because without them we wouldn't have the big ones.
Yeah.
I love that joke.
I feel like model trains were a thing that were like super popular in its day, and even like when we were kids, it was like something you always saw like in toy ads or that was or department stores.
You've
would have, like,
obviously
trains.
never seen the Swayze Express.
Like Patrick Swayze.
Yes, but not the real
Exactly.
Patrick
Oh, I know
Swayze.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, I think it's still probably pretty popular. It's just it's such a niche thing that you
I think
wouldn't
it's an
really
adult
see it.
collector thing though now. Like now
It's
it is
expensive.
more for adults.
It's
like
also
where-
one of those things where you would need a ton of room. You would need
Yeah,
like
you need
an
space.
entire floor of your house to have a bunch of trains in, you know?
I feel like when we were younger, there were plenty of like movies and television shows where it was like depicted as a normal thing that would be like in the toy room. It's to have like a model train. And
If I met somebody now that had a model train room, I'd assume they're a serial killer and not talk to them ever again.
I was gonna say though, but it wasn't like it wasn't a child's activity or hobby.
Right.
It was actually like an adult hobby. That's the weird thing about model trains is it's kind of geared towards children, but it's mostly an adult hobby.
Yeah, because they're dangerous, right? Like they're either electric or gas powered. You don't want your kids playing with that stuff.
not
I
unattended.
mean, that's
And
true.
It just takes an immense amount of detail to like, you know, really set those things up the way you want to and have all these little things that go with it. So yeah, like a kid doesn't care about that enough. You could have a block go around in a circle and like it would be the same level of enjoyment.
You know what I do miss though? The little like car tracks were fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't see those
I remember
anymore.
And all the like Matchbox and Hot Wheels sets where you do like a loop or whatever.
Yeah, I wanted to buy one of those recently, but again, you just need a ton of room, and there's
You
like I
need
don't
a
know where the
lot
hell
of
I'm going to
space,
put
yeah.
that.
So as they get to talking, he explains, and we mentioned this earlier, that the grandmother is like in charge of their education, and that she's in a room right now with Uncle Fester. So when Mr. Hilliard, and that's the name of the truant officer, explains that they need to go to school, Gomez replies like nonsense, like why have children just to get rid of them? It's like an interesting concept.
This was
It's like,
super weird. I think it's, I don't know why. It's just like, I feel like even in TV, even in real life, people are like, yeah, just let the kids go do whatever the hell they want. They wanted the kids around.
Free
I,
and
range.
I thought it
think
was
that's like
strange.
endearing though. Like that's like for a
It
family
is,
that's
but that's strange is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an odd political statement you don't expect for a 1964 show to make. To be
But
like,
I
why
think
would I
it-
send them off?
Right. It goes back to like, it was Addams Family and Munsters kind of did the same thing where they go out of their way to like things that people don't like, right? And I didn't know if that was supposed to be part of that or not.
No, I mean, it's just, you get the whole vibe from this show. It's just the family is super, super close. And that is a theme to, you know, to jump in with you guys talking
Yeah.
about like the future and the movies and everything else. That's like a constant theme is this family is extremely tight knit, but it's interesting to think like for a family that like the whole premise of the show is like, look how creepy and spooky they are, but it's all centered around this hardcore family bonding, which is not like a weird concept, you know, it's strange that it's like all rooted within that.
It's definitely a original spin on that,
The
right?
thing is, he wants them home so he can spend time with them, but he's not even with them right at that point.
Yeah, I guess during like
So,
those moments, but I don't think they never say officially how they go about it, so we don't know. But I don't think there's like, okay, from these hours, children, it's school time with grandma. I think it's more that she's just always teaching them things throughout the day, and that's where
Right,
they're
yeah.
getting their information.
Makes sense.
So also one of his arguments is he shows Mr. Hilliard this box of spiders that Wednesday's breeding, and like these are thoroughbred spiders. Like, you know, like could a 6-year-old do this? Like it was like a very interesting way to be like, look, our kids are advanced. She's breeding spiders.
It's also where he says, yeah, she's doing that at 6 now, but one day she'll be 26. And Gomez says, ooh, well, call me then. At which point I was like, okay, this has gone in a
Yep.
strange direction.
No, that's not how I read that scene at
You
all.
read that
Actually,
completely wrong, Joe. You weird pervert.
Yeah, no. His argument was like things about school that he needed, like that the children need, and it's like, and he was like, "What about reading?" And that's when Gomez like, "Well, what's there for a 6-year-old to read?" And then Mr.
Good
Hilliard
point.
goes, "But someday she'll be 26." He's like, "See you then." Like basically, like we'll worry about it when she's 26.
I read that very differently.
You read it completely different. And
Yeah, I got a very sexual vibe from that.
I never got.
I'm with Joe on that one. I did kind of get a weird vibe out of that one, but now
Thank
that
you,
you've
Nick.
explained it, it does make more sense.
Yeah, I think he's just like the reading
yeah,
isn't
your
important. She's
explanation
6
makes
years
more
old.
sense.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I was watching this with my favorite companion for these shows, Bourbon. So
Yeah.
some of the things may have gotten lost in translation.
That could be it then.
And the glass was not petite.
And then
I was just trying to see if I can crack Berg.
so now he takes Mr. Hilliard to see his mother, who's the one who tutors them, and she's playing darts with Uncle Fester, and they're just using daggers to play. So I don't know if you could call it darts at that point. You could just say they're throwing knives, because that's a game in itself. But when it's Uncle Fester's turn, and they do call her Grandmama, right?
No, she's just mama.
I missed that, but I would love Larry Johnson showing up.
I was gonna say, because I was like, Grandmama.
It's just Mama.
Just 7'5", Grandmama in the wig.
Yeah. So he so when it's Uncle
Can we
Fester's
see how
turn,
much he cost on Cameo? Can we see if we can get him as Grandmama?
I'm sure it'd be a pretty penny, but if so, I'll look into it. So as it's time for Uncle Fester to throw, she stands right in front of him, explaining that it's the only safe place because apparently he's very bad at it. And he throws, and it goes like right into the door as it's being opened, and it goes right in front of the truant officer's face. And when she tells him he can go again, and Gomez adds, this time get him in the old heart. That I feel like he was referencing the dummy that they were throwing, because they had kind of like a dummy's body that they were throwing the
I didn't
daggers
know who
at.
he was talking about.
I don't think he meant Mr. Hilliard.
I think he meant the dummy, but Mr. Hilliard screams and runs off because he thinks he's talking about him. So he's worried that they're trying to throw this dagger in his heart.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to how spooked out he is about the whole house.
Yeah.
About the people, sure, they're weird, for sure. Gomez is weird, and Morticia is weird, and Lurch.
I like that it ends too with like he runs off because he's scared, and Gomez like, weird, isn't he? So now we got Mr. Hilliard back at the principal's office explaining everything that just happened, and he's like still all worked up from it. And he's like, he's just really excited that he got away, and he suggests that the kids just should just stay where they are. And he walks out of the room, he re-enters, and he's just like, that's a closet, I'm sorry. And I thought that was just so random.
That got my first genuine laugh.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
To have.
I knew there'd be a Ferg laugh too, yeah.
He just opens it and goes, that's a closet.
Yeah.
Go, I'm sorry, that's a closet.
And it was like such a weird, like, I don't know why that was there. I liked it.
It was wicked out of place.
Yeah, it was super out of place.
Which made it funny.
Yeah, it really is, because it catches you off guard.
There's also a line at that part where he mentions the Lurch. He says he would freak out Frankenstein. So this is another series going on at the same time where they reference Frankenstein for a character that's basically Frankenstein.
Hey, take the mask off, fella.
So I'm not quite sure, but were there any of these like Universal monster movies? Were they like, was this around the time that they were coming out? I thought it was a little bit before that.
They came out in like the 30s.
They were already definitely out, yeah.
Yeah, but in the 50s was the big heyday of like the horror movie and like the monster movies that were like the second generation of that. And I think a lot of them were like, instead of the Wolfman, it's like Wolfie, Greg, and the Tarzan boy. Like there were all these weird offshoot ones that were like, we can't get the rights for these, we'll make ones that are similar. And they'd usually play as double features.
I guess I'm trying to just still get my head around how these two shows, and by that I mean the Addams Family and the Munsters, both come out at the same exact time, referencing the same kind of things. And you can't help but wonder, like, what was the first chip to fall that made like both of these shows start, happening at the same time?
I want to say a husband and wife went to a scary movie.
And they both work for different companies. One was with CBS.
Exactly. And like, that's it. I want a divorce.
Well, back then there's so few channels, right? So like kids are going to be watching TV at the same time as adults, right? So if you have a show that you think kids love horror movies, kids love Halloween, and you put little kids on here to be characters, then you'll be able to get the parents to like sort of concede to the kids watching them. I think this is almost a ploy to be like, well, there's 3 channels and 4 hours of programming on per day when kids aren't in school. Let's see if we can get them to tune in.
It's just weird to me because they're both like wholesome family shows, like based around like spooky Halloween type stuff. And it's just
weird. I was
weird.
going to say, when there's 3 channels and your competition has what I would assume with the Munsters would be cutting edge technology for the time, like for production wise for television, you want to do something equal to that. Like,
yeah, but they didn't know that. They came out at the exact same time, so they wouldn't have had anything to compare.
Yeah, but I think there was still variety and stuff. They would have been having reports and knowing about it. They would have all been getting drunk at Frank and Musso's and talking about what they were working on or whatever. The Brown Derby.
Yeah. I mean, there's insider knowledge.
Talking old-timey. I got a Frankenstein on my show. So do I.
Mine's got a flat head, fella. How about yours?
I gotta pee.
I tell you, he's a vampire. He's not just any vampire, he's also their grandfather.
Why is old-timey talk so
It's so fun.
Damn it, Mimsy.
Quiet, Jody.
And how about this? A hand is going to grab the mail.
You mean it's a hand that's not attached to anything?
Just a hand, I say. Just a hand. So now we're back at the Addams house, and we see Morticia, and she's like pruning roses, but she's pruning the flower off, so you just have the thorny stems. And she's very proud of the of the display she just made. As her and Gomez are there talking, and they hear thunder, and she's like, "Oh, this heavenly sound like makes life worth living." I don't know. I know it's supposed to be spooky. I kind of like thunder too, though, so I didn't find that to be like super spooky.
Yeah, I find that more calming.
Yeah, but it causes them to reflect on their honeymoon in Death Valley, which was in a cave with bats.
Do you think they know the Undertaker?
They might. I assume he was at the wedding. Yeah. And it's Death Valley is Nevada, though, right?
I think it goes Nevada into California.
Okay.
That's pretty wide, I think, or pretty long. I don't know, I forget if it's wide or long, but it's a big desert.
So you think the Addams family, like after their wedding, they went to Vegas for a little bit and then they headed over to Death Valley?
I like to think, is the Undertaker one of their children? This is 64, 74, 84, Undertaker, Mean Mark Callis, or Texas Red is like, what, 87?
Could be right around that time.
I think I see. This would probably be way better of a spinoff than The Undertaker and The New Day on Netflix, or whatever the shit that is.
Yeah, I still need to give that a watch.
Overall, that was excellent.
I will never watch
it
that.
A few more times to get all the endings and story parts. But
I love The Undertaker, and I hate that exists so much.
You're no fun.
But yeah, so as they continue to reflect on their honeymoon, Gomez just starts kissing her back in various spots. And then we cut to Lurch, who's playing the organ with the rest of the family all sitting around the living room. And then when Morticia and Gomez enter, she shows him a sweater that she knit for their cousin, and it has 3 arms. And Gomez doesn't seem to take note of the third arm. He's just kind of concerned that their cousin doesn't wear turtlenecks. So I'm assuming this is like, other than the hand thing, maybe like the first real sign that there's some like real supernatural stuff going on.
That's how the 90s movie, the first one, ends. She holds up the sweater and it's got the 3 arms, I mean.
Is there a character that has 3 arms? I can't remember going on, because there's it and there's Thing. Like,
there's the Siamese twins, but
yeah,
that's all I can think of.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that, well, with the movie, that's probably a callback to the first episode. So that's probably like a little wink to this specific episode then.
Yeah.
And then Morticia then walks up to Lurch and like just bops him in the head, which like changes the song he's playing as if it's a radio, like an old radio. And then this new song is a little more upbeat, so she's just like dancing in the living room.
Yeah, he kind of starts rocking out at this point.
Yeah, she's really into this song. And then Gomez slaps his arm, which changes the song to like more of like a waltz type music.
By the way, that's a real dick move. She clearly really liked the song.
Yeah, she wanted to hear that song.
It on her.
He wanted to dance too. He didn't want to dance in the manner which she was dancing. Apparently, he wanted.
It's like if you were watching TV and I just came in and took the remote from you and changed the channel.
Yeah, the second you put something on, so you can't even assume that like, oh, are you not watching this? Like clearly, I just put this on.
Dick.
And then an alarm sounds, which means the mail's there. And a box opens with the hand from earlier.
I want that so badly. Like, I want to know when the mail comes so badly, not be checking tracking numbers all day and hoping that I catch it. Our mail comes at wildly different times, and it's always insane. I wish they'd ring the bell. Yeah,
at least with packages now, like you pretty much get a instant notification from everybody at this point. You're not just getting the mail. It's the mail, and usually comes around the same time. But you know, Amazon alerts everything in your house now when your toothbrush shows up in a little envelope at your front door.
Hey, Joe, your mail's here.
I just want that alarm.
So so then that hand gives them the mail, and they say thank you, Thing. So that's what the sign was referencing. Now we know that Thing is the hand. And part of the mail is a letter from the school demanding that they enlist the children immediately, which Gomez obviously objects to, and he doesn't want to be apart from them. But Morticia's a little bit more in favor. She's taken note that Wednesday tends to like look outside and she sees the other children pass, and she's under the impression she wants to play with the other kids. And he's like, well, she didn't get that from my side of the family.
It's a good line.
He's like, I never went to school. Look how I turned out.
Yeah.
I love Uncle Fester's voice.
Well, yeah, because Uncle Fester defends Gomez by saying, like, I never went to school. Look how good I turned out. When Morticia explains accomplishments, he then brags about how he is 100 volts, and he pulls a light bulb out and puts it in his mouth, which lights up. He's like, I can even make it blink. We just see the light bulb going off and on, off and on.
No, this is one of those things like the all of the grandpa stuff from the Munsters. We were like, I don't know how they did this, and all I can think of is that it was definitely dangerous. Like, he probably had some sort of electrical thing in his mouth And probably was it either getting mildly shocked or was it a very high risk of getting shocked to pull this off in 1964?
And it was probably like super hot.
Did batteries exist then?
I mean, in general, batteries existed, yeah, but I don't know.
Small batteries that we know today,
I think like modern batteries, but I don't know how you'd be able to get it to go like the blinking. You know what I mean?
I don't think it'd be that hard for them to just set up a battery powered light that blinks.
Bulb would probably get hot though, just being on your mouth.
That's true.
Yeah, like they haven't figured that out now.
Yeah, I know. Like,
yeah, they have LEDs.
Aside from LEDs, I guess, yeah.
To go back to what you were saying, Ferg, the first battery was
probably like the 1800s.
Invented in 1800 even. So
while you have Wikipedia open, can you find out when the AA battery was created?
That was actually from physics.org,
okay.
actually.
My bad.
1907 for the AA.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that is older than I would have thought.
You know what? That mankind is progressing too slow. We haven't come much further with energy.
Well, we figured batteries still work pretty good, so we're like nailed it. Actually, our biggest problem is that we've gotten away from batteries and we keep trying to do other things and using fuel and all that other stuff.
Speak for yourself. Look at all these batteries.
Yeah. For those of you just listening, is shaking a box of batteries that he has near him at all times, apparently.
There's like hundreds of them in that box.
It's his good luck charm.
AA's, AAA's, I got all the A's.
Yeah.
I do.
And was that our a good mix of humor and Wikipedia fact segment for the episode?
Yes. So Morticia convinces Gomez to finally let them go to school. So the next scene, we see the family in the principal's office, and they're talking to her, but Mr. Hilliard walks in and sees them and immediately puts his hat on over his face and turns away because he's like that frightened. Like, I don't know, like as spooky as everything happened in the house, I don't know why he's this afraid of them. That like just
he
being
get a knife whipped at him.
Yeah,
but even then, that's understandable.
Is it?
Well, I don't know if I'd say that's understandable, but
water under the bridge, Charlie.
But I wouldn't say that they're out to kill him. Like they're just gonna come to the school now, and they're all, you know.
That's what he thinks. He thinks they're trying to kill him because they threw a knife at him, and he said, "Now go for the heart," and then he ran out.
Yeah, so maybe it's still dealing.
But it's
with
a simple misunderstanding.
It is, but,
you know,
but he's still misunderstanding it. So.
If he wasn't so freaked out by samurais and turtles, you know, he might have gotten to know them.
No, he's freaked out by a knife whipped by his face. It's not the samurais and turtles.
But that already put him in the mood. To already not want
all the spooky, like stepping on a rug that roars. Yeah, there's a lot of that was going on first. That was definitely freaking him out. So he only needed a little bit to set him off at that point.
Also,
and a knife being whipped
he walks in
good.
on them like joking about killing people. I forget what he says with the lady. He's like, "Oh, you're my kind of people."
Yeah.
So they then talk about how odd he is when he leaves, and she thinks that he's been drinking and spells out booze, which
BOOZE, booze,
which immediately Wednesday recognized the word. Like, so again, they are learning. They're you know, even they talked about reading earlier, but she's not illiterate. She was able to piece together booze as it was spelled out in front of her.
No, they're smart kids.
Yeah,
I mean, she raises spiders. I mean. I don't know about you. I can't raise spiders.
I think they're learning fine. I think this is classic, and I don't know anybody who does this. I'm not trying to throw shade, but people always say the issue with homeschooling is that the one thing you lack is the social aspect of it.
Yes.
It seems like that's the exact issue in this episode. They're learning everything just fine, but they're clearly missing like the social aspect of things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And now the principal's explaining how hard the superintendent is, and Gomez recommends all these things that they can do to him, and the principal's like on board with it, and she even offers a few ideas of herself. Yeah,
they offer like dip him in boiling oil.
Yeah, so like most likely she doesn't realize that he's serious and is just playing along with the joke of all these terrible things they could do. Like he's laughing along at the idea. I don't think she's trying to hire him as a hitman, but Gomez is, I would assume, very serious when he's recommending all these things. Despite they don't seem like a violent family. Like, they don't come off violent yet.
Well, doesn't he have an oil guy? Like a boiling oil guy? Isn't this where Morticia's like, don't you have, a boiling oil guy?
No,
goes, great job,
the witch
great
doctor.
Job.
Yeah, they have a witch doctor friend, and they go, oh, we haven't talked to him. They say something like, we haven't spoken to him in ages.
Yeah. And Mr. Hilliard hears all this, by the way, and he is, he's frightened enough around them. Now he's like over the edge. Like he's terrified. And now we go back to the house where they're waiting for the kids to come home from school. And Gomez is like hoping they let Pugsley drive so they'll get there quicker. And he's like, what, 8?
Take lessons from him.
I have no idea what their ages are supposed to be.
I thought it was like 8
tough
and
to
6.
gauge how old they're supposed to be, yeah.
On these older shows.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's tough, even harder.
I know I looked up Wednesday because so someday she'll be 26 or whatever. So I looked up what year that would be, and that would be 1986. I don't know why that's in my notes. So we were 1 when she was actually the age of 26.
So Wednesday Addams is 6 in the original series.
That's what I thought. They were 6 and 8.
And let me see. They don't actually say Pugsley's age, but I assume he's 8.
And we're on what website to check this?
Now we're on Wikipedia.
Now
we're on
officially
Wikipedia. But Wednesday Addams is 12 to 13 in the films.
Yeah.
And Pugsley is, of course, a little older.
So as they get home finally, the car pulls up. We see Wednesday is crying and just runs up the stairs straight up to her room and jumps in bed. And I did want to note the crying that they dubbed in was terrible. It was absolutely awful. It was clearly dubbed over.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It was clearly dubbed over, and it was very fake crying on top of it. So it wasn't even good. But Gomez chases her to see what's wrong, and she's like, "They killed him," and he's like, "Mr. Hilliard." And she's up night that the knight in shining armor killed the dragon in the story that they were told in school. So obviously to them, they viewed the dragon as the protagonist.
Yeah, and that's when they talk about Grimm's fairy tales, and they're like, well, it doesn't sound that bad. And then, and then it's like, well, they killed the dragon. Oh, no.
Well, I guess any story like that, right? We just assume that you always are introduced to any fable or whatever through the eyes of a certain character, but there is a flip side. So yeah, if you were to think from the perspective of the dragon, like dragon's just doing dragon shit.
They make a similar joke at Addams Family Values when she's telling Hansel and Gretel to the kids, and they all start crying. She's like, "Do you remember that they pushed the poor witch into the oven? Can you imagine what that?"
I think they kind of reference. Yeah, they reference that in this episode too. Yeah. Specifically Hansel and Gretel. So that was in the movie also.
Yeah.
So they not only do they reference the old show and do a lot of nods, but there's a lot of specific callbacks to just this one first episode, which is kind of weird.
Pilot.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. Like, it was almost like the writers or director or whoever decided to just like, oh, I need a little bit of content to like get the backstory, and they just watched the one episode of the very first episode and went, okay, we're good.
Yeah,
we have a vibe.
They even do the light bulb with Uncle Fester.
Yeah,
in the movie too.
Yeah, but it's all from just this pilot. It's kind of crazy as we piece this together now.
And that was kind of neat, not knowing, like seeing that and knowing the movie where it came from.
So now they're trying to figure out what to do to fix all this. Why, obviously Gomez is so focused on his family. The thought that, his daughter is crying now and is this upset, like he needs to try to fix this. So they want to have Mr. Hilliard over now to discuss. And it cuts to him talking to like the principal and is like just shaking his head and saying no. And he's like, I haven't made my will yet. So he's just convinced that they're going to kill him.
Yeah, he gets a real wimpy on this one.
Yeah. And so now we cut back to the house and they sent Lurch to get him. And then Lurch shows up just holding Mr. Hilliard the way like a groom would be holding his bride walking into like to their honeymoon suite or whatever on wedding night.
He like carries him across the threshold.
Yes, exactly. And then Lurch sits him down and he's absolutely terrified to be there. He's so uncomfortable. And then it's just wait till you see what they cooked up for you. And what was it? The end?
Weren't they cookies?
It was like
soup. It was cookies, lizards.
Yeah, but I think it was called The End. They specified and said it was the end.
Yeah. That was the potion or the soup that they made.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they made them the cookies, which were like, and Gomez is like, the lizards are really good.
Yeah, it was like the bats are Gomez's favorite, but the lizards are good too.
Yeah, that was it.
And then Fester was like, you can feel them wiggling all the way down.
His voice. We laugh.
Yeah, he does have a great voice.
And then Mr. Hilliard tries to get up, and then the thing pops up and from behind and grabs him and sits him back down. And Morticia acknowledges how nervous he is, and they try to figure out something to relax him, and that would be the rack. And the bell rings again, and every time they do that, by the way, like that big gong type thing, they shake the camera and they try to make it look like there's like a little earthquake every time this thing goes off.
The classic inexpensive effect, right? Just shake the whole house,
the
whole camera, easy.
I like when they were talking about the rack, though. He just said, "We just got all the squeaks put back in it."
And that bell brings Lurch, which is the "you rang," which I feel like is probably the more iconic Like, that's what you think of with Lurch in general.
Totally, yeah.
That line.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hilliard, again, he's trying to run away, but Gomez grabs him this time and brings him back to the chair. And he sits there, and they explain to him that they're just not in favor of these violent stories being told in school. The killing of a poor dragon. And Mr. Hilliard says there are no real dragons. And he's like, what gave you that impression? And then this also goes to what you were mentioning earlier from the movie, the Hansel and Gretel line. So tossing that poor woman in the oven.
Yeah, somebody calls them little juvenile delinquents as well.
Does he? I'm trying to remember if I remember that. Is he talking about Wednesday and Pugsley?
He's talking about Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel.
Because they're mad. He's mad that they put the
Gomez.
witch in
Okay,
there.
okay.
So he refers to them as little juvenile delinquents for killing the witch.
And then, so Mr. Hilliard, he's like nearly in tears at this point. He's so terrified, which, like, I get he doesn't want to be there. I get he's uncomfortable by the family, but I didn't know what happened at this point that made him like this uneasy that he's like at the break of like crying.
I think it's because, as you know, he thinks they're trying to kill him. Now they're trying to make him eat food, which he thinks is poison.
Yeah.
And they just said they were going to put him in a medieval torture device.
I guess it's that.
So.
The Iron Maiden. Excellent.
Iron Maiden. Excellent.
So he pretends to be like on board with them just because he's just trying to find an exit. So he's like, if I just agree with these people, maybe they'll let me go home. And as he walks away, the thing hands him his hat, and he doesn't really take note that it's just a hand until like he goes outside. He grabs the hat, leaves, and then he like reflects, like, wait, what did I just see? And that's how that scene kind of ends with just that little.
By the way, I don't think he was pretending to agree with them. I think he did. He's like an old school, like, oh, it's too violent.
Really? No, I didn't get that vibe. I was under the impression he just wants out of that house. And no matter what they said, he'd be like, sure, whatever you want. Let me leave and I'll go pitch it.
No, because he says the line, oh, I guess I had you people all wrong. I'm going to get on the line with the school board right away and stuff. It's like, why would he say that? Why did he just say okay and leave?
I took it the same way as Jay did, that he was just agreeing, or they drove him mad. That they drove him insane.
I think he was
he's
agreeing,
like, dragons. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah, I think they just broke him. I think they just broke his brain at that point.
Yeah.
But I guess we all see things differently. I see it as the Addams Family invented cancel culture.
Yeah.
And the book's banned.
So now the next scene is the whole family in the living room together, and Grandmama is upset with Fester for not cheating at cards. The phone rings, and Thing picks it up and hands it to Morticia, and it's Mr. Hilliard. And he got the board to get rid of all those stories. It was like, we may have just saved the world. And it was like, do you think we did the right thing? So maybe to them the world isn't worth saving. They're looking for a nice end to all this. They're very alone in their values and views, right?
And kind of isolated too, right? Like they don't like to leave the house. The outside world doesn't really affect them too much.
They think the world is weird. As anything you think about the Addams family that you would consider weird to them isn't. So they view the way conventional things are as weird. So they feel outnumbered. They're like, enough with this world.
The same thing like with the Munsters last week, right?
Yeah.
Like the Munsters thought the world was spooky and gross. Same thing with the Addams family.
Right. And that was the final line of the movie, the show. I'm sorry. It was kind of like it was a little joke. It was fine. It was kind of I thought it was a little bit of a weak ending. It's just a little anticlimactic, right? After everything that was going on, it was just a phone call. Hey, they're giving you what you want. It was like, okay, bye. And that was it. So now we get to the credits, and it's basically the intro again. And it's just the family just standing there as the credits roll.
Oh.
But I don't think there was any, I think for that, I don't know if they were snapping. And I was just like, if they're not moving at all, why not just use a still image? Why are we just having them stand there for a minute? Just don't move at all, everyone. We're just going to record you for a minute. Like they could have just used a picture.
Yeah, taking a photo would have been a lot easier for that. You could have just had the credits roll over it instead of having to have like a weird, and that's before Steadicam, so it's not like it's a straight, hard shot. It's like a little shaky.
It's like the Beverly Hillbillies when they wave, all waving at the end.
Right, that makes sense though. At least they're waving.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Yeah, they're like in that one they're signifying that's the end of the show. Like goodbye, everybody. So so that was a whole episode. So I wanted to note, like we've brought it up before. We've compared Munsters to Addams Family. It's come up a few times. But what would you say, like other than the fact that The Munsters are clearly specific monsters and like vampires and everything. And with the Addams Family, it's just a little bit more gothic. There is like the supernatural elements, like we have like just a floating hand. But in general, what would you say the big differences in these shows are? It would take away like the specific visuals of the family.
Well, the Addams Family was already a comic strip, so it's like I'm not sure if maybe because the Munsters was its own property, like just created, but this already had an established audience from just like the newspaper comics. But I don't know. I wasn't quite sure what they're supposed to be because we've seen them for the first time as kids. So it's just like that was your first experience with the Addams Family. So none of it is like I didn't have anything to compare it to other than the Munsters.
I will say I did notice that it was almost like blue collar versus white collar. The Munsters were blue collar and the Addams Family are white collar. It just seems like they're so similar, but it's just like one has money, the other one didn't really, you know?
Yeah, I would say like one thing I noted was the Munsters seem to be a little bit more grounded in reality. Like even though it's a Frankenstein's monster and a vampire and a wolf boy, other than those like weird things that might cater their interests, like they pretty much act normal. Like everything's like pretty standard. Like they operate pretty standard family.
Yeah.
Where with the Addams Family, you see a lot of more straight, like the throwing the knives and like all the like the cookies with bats in it. Like they didn't really do that with the Munsters. The Munsters were at home like drinking tea at the end of the night. Like they are monsters, but they are acting like regular humans.
Yeah, they don't go out of your way to make the Munsters seem like they're like wacky and crazy. They just look a little different. Whereas the Addams Family is
they look closer to normal, but act more
right,
eccentrically.
Yeah, it's like the opposite.
That's kind of the big flip.
Is it? I know the Munsters has like the new movie coming out, but it's weird how like the shows are so similar, but the Addams Family has such a longevity where they've had like successful movie after movie after movie, different series, everything. With the Munsters, they've tried to reboot and it fails every time.
The Munsters?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Rob Zombie's going to make that any better, but I mean,
he's going to ruin it. But.
These shows are always around. They've been always around our whole lives, and it's pretty interesting. I just saw a commercial the other day for the Maine State Lottery for Addams Family scratch tickets, like a specific commercial with like.
It's because the new movie just came out.
Yeah, so like they're always going to be around.
Well, whoever's in charge of the Addams Family franchise is like on their game because they kept that brand relevant.
Yeah, they took like making money in perpetuity like very seriously off
it's
that.
Like
they
just wait like they wait like every 10 years and like put something new out, like a new spin on it. And it's like it'll always kind of be there.
It's almost like the James Bond movies. It's from the same time when it started, and they just sort of evolve with the times, and then new generations pick up on it as the new ones come out. I will say, though, one thing is I kind of hate the world we live in now where things are like rushed to be made cartoons or CGI stuff now, because the fact that they haven't made an Addams Family movie with Ty Burrell as Gomez, I just think is like
he
the
would
most
be good.
wasted
Wow.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Who is that?
He's the dad from Modern Family. He was also in the what's the fucking zombie movie with Ving Rhames? He was in that too.
Now I know who you're talking about. When you said the dad from Modern Family, I'm like, Ed O'Neill?
No, not Ed O'Neill. The other
dad.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a terrible Gomez.
I think he'd
really?
be
Actually,
that's a good
Gomez.
call.
It's because I'll only see Phil, and you can't have someone who played an iconic role play another iconic role without seeing that.
If the actor's good enough, you can get it back. I'm trying to think now. Can you think of someone you'd have play Gomez? I'm trying to think of who I would
Kevin
select.
Nash.
When in doubt.
Who else can play
God,
Gomez? Wow. I just can't stop thinking about Raul Julia. So
Yeah, I know he did such a great job as kids.
I think I'm getting so locked into the visual. Like I'm trying to think of someone who would look the part, and not someone who will play the part.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has any good ideas of their own, they should message us, write in, let us know.
Yeah, put it on our social media. It's S1E1 Pod on almost anything you can think of, but you can always go to S1E1pod.com, and that's the links to everything. But yeah, so let's just get straight into the green light or cancels, because I don't think there's anything left to talk about the show unless someone has something in mind. No. So let's get into it. I'm going to go in the order that I see you guys in right now. So Nick, you're first.
I have a very short attention span, so sometimes I gauge by how quickly I will lose attention to something. I could not get through this show without having to like go back and watch what I missed. I was incredibly distracted and bored. I just didn't have a lot of fun watching this show. I thought it was acted well. I don't think that was part of the problem. I thought even the writing was decent. There was just something about the show at its core that I just did not find interesting. And I wonder if watching The Munsters before this affected my view on this show at all, because I did enjoy The Munsters and this just wasn't as good to me. And I didn't really want to see another episode. So I'm going to cancel it. And that's that.
All right. On to you, Joe.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with Nick a little bit on the Munsters thing. You know, I think with the Munsters, what I said was that it's fine. It's on in the background. You respect it and you don't hate it and you get a couple laughs, but it's not something where like you could sit and binge it for an entire Sunday. It's something you put on while you're getting coffee or doing whatever. So I can't cancel it on that. And I really can't cancel it because it's the reason we have Addams Family Values, which is just something that I love so much. So I'll greenlight it for that.
Ferg, on to you.
It's tough with like these older shows. You try to like put yourself back then because it's a different kind of humor we have now. But with the Munsters, I loved it. And I don't know if it's just member berries from when I was a kid, but I was still very into it. I hated this and I had no connection to it. Like I said, I love the 90s movies and so on. Really good. But this is a big cancel for me. I was miserable watching it the whole time. And like I said, I only laughed. I had one laugh, and it was that closet scene. This is the closet. It's like, oh, yeah, cancel.
Gordo.
Yeah, I'm with Nick and Ferg here. I just didn't enjoy this particular episode and this introduction to the family. I love the movies, but there was just something about this show that just didn't land with me, and I can't quite put my finger on what it was. I don't know if it was a disconnect in the humor of that time to here, or it was the writing of that, but just something I didn't connect with. So it's a cancel. I want to see a movie. I don't want to see another episode.
All right, well, for me, I'm siding with Joe, and I'm going to greenlight it. But I will say, you know, even especially as we review it and I'm looking back and I'm thinking of things, there's a lot of things I would wish were better about this episode. And I don't know if it's just my inability to disconnect my love of the Addams Family franchise, because I know it's the complete opposite of how we run the show. Because I wouldn't say I hated the episode, but I went in and I enjoyed it. There were a lot of things that I thought could have been done better, but I liked it enough and enough to want to keep watching. I think my humor kind of goes in that direction. A lot of the gothy type stuff that goes with it and Halloweenish undertones, that's just kind of my general interest, I think. So that definitely gave it a little bit of a boost with me. I can totally understand why 3 of you canceled it though, but I wouldn't say it was an easy pass. I do think, again, compared to the Munsters, I think the Munsters, at least first episode, the Munsters I think blew it out of the water. But I did like the Addams Family enough to want to give it the green light. So, with that being said, only 2 out of 5 are green lighting the Addams Family. So, unfortunately, we're canceling this one, which I did not really expect going into it. Well, at least when we selected the show. So, unfortunately, Addams Family, I'm sorry, you do not make it to episode 2. You have been canceled by us. So let us know what you all think. If you guys want to go back and watch the first episode of the Addams Family, which was called The Addams Family Goes to School, check that out. I believe it was on, was that on anything actually? Now that I'm trying to direct people, was there anywhere you could watch the show?
We watched it. I think it might have been on Peacock.
I want to say Hulu.
Was it Hulu?
Was it Hulu or Peacock?
I think it was on a streaming service. So go figure it out if you really want to watch it.
Yeah, well, go search for it. I'm trying to help you guys out.
I think it was on something called Google It.
Yeah, go Google it. They'll probably lie to you, though, because we've dealt with that in the past,
yes.
too. But, yeah, in any event, guys, if you want to check us out, go to S1E1pod.com. That's the links to everywhere we can go and listen to us, all our social media, S1E1pod, Twitter, Instagram, all that. Don't forget to rate, review, spread the word, let everyone know where to find us. We love the interaction, so reach out to us. Gordo, you got something to say?
Yeah, the Addams Family TV show is currently on Hulu and Paramount Plus.
Oh, thank you for that.
Good
so
to
go
know.
to Hulu if you want to watch the Addams Family. And that's it from us this week. Check us out next week for our final of the 4 Halloween-themed episodes we're doing for the month of October. Well, we'll catch you then. Charles in charge. See you next week. Goodbye.
I die.